I remember well the first time I travelled to Malawi. It was the first time I had ever visited an African country, and as one might expect, there were more than a few things which struck me as being unusual, things which were so very different from the way they were back home. We had driven north for several hours along M1, the main north-south road running the length of the country. We had arrived at the village of Ekwendeni when I noticed on the right-hand side of the road a number of pieces of furniture for sale, sitting outside what I presumed to be the home of a carpenter. There was a table and chairs, a bed and a number of coffins. Yes, there were a number of coffins, beds for the living and beds for the dead. At least that's what first came to my mind. And although I thought it was somewhat strange to see coffins among items of furniture, it made perfect sense. And then I thought how refreshing it was to be so open about what is so often something of a forbidden subject back home. There was nothing ornate about these coffins, and, well, why should there be? By design, they were intended to simply convey the remains of a dearly departed soul and then be buried in the ground, never to be seen again. Indeed, just 2 days later, I would find myself at the graveside of a young lady whom I had never known in this life, sharing words of hope and compassion with the rather large crowd that had gathered for her funeral. Many of those present were followers of Jesus, but from what I recall, about half of the crowd were from the local village of Manolo, and they would have worshipped all manner of different things. Well, I certainly hadn't been expecting to find myself in such a situation, speaking to an unknown crowd at the funeral of an unknown sister in the Lord, and in a language unknown to most of the people present, and for an unknown length of time. But these occasions do tend to bring people together. Well, this ability of funerals to bring people together has probably never been more evident than at the recent funeral of our late Queen Elizabeth II, with thousands packed into Westminster Abbey, hundreds of thousands lining the streets of London to watch the procession, millions around the country watching events on their television screens, and billions watching around the globe. Nothing else in living memory seems to have brought so many people together at any one time. Of course, people attend or watch funerals for all kinds of different reasons. For some, it may be simple curiosity. For others, it might be a matter of not wanting to miss out on the occasion. But for most of us, it's about a desire to remember, to give thanks, to pay one's last respects to the one who has left us, and to help console those left behind. And even if we didn't personally know the deceased, we might still want to share in sort of solidarity with those more closely connected. Pardon me. I've always thought it a rather particular phenomenon at funerals, sometimes even rather sad, to learn things of those departed that we never knew of them in life. I was at the funeral of an old schoolmaster earlier this year up in Yorkshire, and I learned things of him which I wish I had known long before. I'd love to have spoken with him about these things, but of course by then it's all too late. And then there are those anecdotes repeated on occasions which bring to mind happy memories of lives well lived and which might cause us to chuckle, even on such a solemn occasion. But it's the memories we take with us which serve as lifelong companions in the place of those no longer able to walk by our side. And it's the memories that sometimes help to keep us going. Whilst watching the funeral of our late Queen Elizabeth, somewhat later than most, as I had been on the Mall at the time of her funeral, listening to the ceremony broadcast from the Abbey through loudspeakers strategically placed along the route of the procession. But whilst watching the later funeral service broadcast from St. George's Chapel at Windsor, we observed for the first time under public gaze the breaking of the wand. This was one of the final ceremonial acts of the day, performed by the Lord Chamberlain, who broke this thin white staff, the wand of office, before placing it on the Queen's coffin, where it was to be buried along with her. It was a ceremonial gesture to signify the end of his service to the sovereign. Well, back to the graveside in Manolo in northern Malawi, the coffin was lowered into the ground. There was little of any ceremony, and I don't recall what words were spoken at that time, though I presume they were likely not in English. But of course many tears were shed, and the hole in the ground that was the grave was filled in once more. I thought that would have been it, but then an orange plastic washing up bowl was produced. Nothing special, just an ordinary, everyday orange plastic washing up bowl. It was placed on the grave and then swiftly broken, making it completely useless for washing any more dishes. Well, of course, I was rather curious about this action, and after making some inquiries was informed that this was a common practice to take something which the deceased had used in life, but for which they now no longer had any need. Well, it made perfect sense, I suppose, and it served as a very visual reminder that once this life is over, we will no longer have need for those things which are of this world. Well, I thought of this orange plastic washing up bowl as the Lord Chamberlain broke his thin white staff before placing it on the Queen's coffin. It was a simple yet profound act. And I suppose these things, they're all a part of the customs and ceremonies adopted by societies all around the world, which help us to cope with these difficult times by making some sort of sense of death. I've wondered what I should have broken at my funeral. Something I've used in this life, but for which I will no longer have any need. Maybe one of my favourite tea mugs. I rather think my children might enjoy doing that. Well, the thing is, once we leave this life, we'll be taking nothing with us. As Job rightly said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." And much later, when speaking of contentment, Paul would write to Timothy, "For we brought nothing into the world, and we cannot take anything out of the world." All the savings, if we should have anything like that, all the things we've accumulated over the years, the books, the artifacts, the mugs for our tea, the collection of sugar wrappers, the really useful things that will come in handy one day, everything will be left behind. And when the rich and famous leave this life, don't ever think of asking, how much have they left behind? Rather know this. Know that they left everything behind, absolutely everything. And we're all in this together. And whether we like it or not, there really is no escape. No matter how well we might hide away the coffins, one day there'll be one with our name on it, so to speak. No matter how we might try not to think about it or even speak of it, one day all the things with which we surround ourselves will no longer be of any use to us. But for those who leave this life, trusting in Jesus, what a glorious day that will be. Not only will we be free of pain and sickness and heartache and hunger and all the cares and burdens of life and its possessions. Not only will we be free of all these things, but we will be at home where we rightly belong, in the place that He's prepared for us to be. There's something about going home after a long journey that can be deeply satisfying, unless if your house is a tip and you'd rather be somewhere else, of course. But there can be something deeply satisfying about going home to a place that we love. But this world is not our real home. However palatial your surroundings may be, it's not where we really belong. And it's not where our dearest belongings are to be found. Those for which we are truly longing in Christ. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's how the most popular of the Psalms concludes, words that are often sung or read at funerals. But it's for the here and now too. In a sense, we are already at home with God. But when that day comes, we will be at home with him in all his glory. Whatever home we might make for ourselves in this life, it will become nothing but a distant memory. All with which we might have surrounded ourselves in our earthly homes will become as useless as a broken plastic washing up bowl. This was never meant to be all that it was about. We were always created for something, for somewhere far better. We were always created for glory. And I know that sometimes we can get too comfortable in this life. You know, we listen to some of the lies that govern this world, and we can forget that it's really not our home. It's not where we belong. But we like to hang on to things which one day will be useless. Things which are of no eternal value. And we look for comfort in our surroundings. But in all of this, we are mistaken. We've not been created to be comfortable, quite the opposite. We've been created for glory. Paul writes to the believers in Rome about suffering with Christ in order that we might also be glorified with him. And then he says, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us." Now, we could say a lot more about that sometime, couldn't we? But isn't that an amazing thought? However hard this life might be, whatever struggles we might face, none of it is worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. Amazing. So we do not lose heart, he'll write to those in Corinth. Though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. For this light momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison, as we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. All the pain, all the affliction, all the heartache, all the persecution, all the abuse the world might hurl at us, all of it is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. This is not the way of the world in which we live, but it is the way of the kingdom of God. It is the way of Christ, for it is the way of the Father. Listen to to John, the disciple whom Jesus loved. Listen to him. See, he says, what kind of love the Father has given to us that we should be called children of God. And so we are. The reason why the world does not know us is that it did not know him. Beloved, we are God's children now, and what we will be has not yet appeared. But we know that when he appears, we shall be like him, because we shall see him as he is. We shall see him in all his glory, the glory which he had with the Father in the beginning. Well, maybe there's been something here for us to think about. I hope so. And in all of this, may our ever-loving Father hold us in his arms and ever keep us safe. May he open our eyes to see and understand the passing nature of all this world has to offer. In all of life's struggles, may he continue to prepare us for an eternal glory beyond all comparison. And may he bless us abundantly, that we might truly be a blessing to those around us. Thank you.